Hi, my name is Jose Fernandez. I'm the president and owner of CompSec Direct. I am here today to talk to you about AutoDyne and how it can help you quickly emulate and test out different firmware samples. Now, this talk is going to be divided in two parts. So the first part is going to be kind of like a quick executive summary for those people that are just trying to watch all the videos, because asking people to watch, hour-long videos is it's not really ideal. So after this 2-minute rundown, we're going to then provide another more in-depth, more technical talk that also includes proof of concept of the software running and hopefully executing some firmware samples. So if you're watching this, I wanted to first of all thank you for participating and making this event a realization. And I hope you enjoy. We worked really hard on this, so we wanted to share this out with the community for everybody to use and enjoy. So thank you. Take care. Well, a little about us. CompSec Direct is a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business with a focus in cybersecurity. We provide hybrid and remote security assessments, incident response, and custom research and development proofs of concepts. We're interested in partnering with other companies that also look at IoT firmware samples, so please reach out. We have capabilities, we have staff, we simply need more opportunities to prove our mettle. Maybe you can help. Also, if you're watching, we will allow early adopters of our disassociated range called Clear 4 to sign up on the link below. We will close signups on December 1st at 1900. For the agenda today, we will be talking about that quick 2-minute executive summary I promised. I know it's coming. It's coming right after this. We're going to talk about what this is. What is AutoDyne? What do I care about it, right? We're going to talk about who made it and why that's important. Why would I use it? Not everybody wants to jump into IoT firmware emulation, but let me tell you, we'll help you get there. We're also going to talk about where you can find this, and we're going to talk about the improvement and the update cycle for this application. More importantly, can it do X? So that's where we're going to dive into these proof of concept videos of us trying out different firmware samples. All right? Just stick with us. Thank you. Now here's that quick 2-minute executive summary I promised you. So AutoDyne started out as a shell wrapper for Firmadyne. Now Firmadyne was software that was made by researchers at Carnegie Mellon University and Boston University. So what it allows you to do is extract and analyze firmware samples. Now what we've done with AutoDyne is we've put all of the software and components that are necessary to run Firmadyne in a repeatable manner, and we've put that inside a Docker container. We've also scripted the execution of Firmadyne, so all you pretty much have to do is give it a firmware sample and a name, and that's it, right? So this is software that was originally put out back in 2016. Although the Firmadyne project does have its own Docker container, what we've done is a little bit different because it does everything for you start to finish. Now that's very important because one of the goals for AutoDyne was to reduce labor hours associated with extracting and analyzing firmware, right? So not using this, it's just a good way to keep perpetuating that manual analysis and repetition that we're imposing on our researchers. We're going to open source this on December, and one of the things that we're planning on doing is we're going to be implementing perhaps some form of like paid modules or like paid extensions to be able to answer different research questions associated with IoT security research. Now, click on the link at the bottom. Maybe the link doesn't work, just visit the link at the bottom. That's where you will be able to find AutoDyne. So we will have it both on Docker Hub ready to go, and we will also have it on our GitHub page at github.com/CompSecDirect. So be sure to check it out. Well, here we are. So, I've already pulled down the project. I haven't built anything, so let's kind of see what we have here. So, we have a Docker file. We have a Docker Compose file. Firmadyne deploy some P-SQL stuff. Cool. So things that we're interested in, we obviously have to build this, right? But in our case, what we're going to do is just we're going to make build and make start to really kick this off, right? So the way that this container works is the AutoDyne script, that shell wrapper script, is here, right? So this file size will most likely change, but one of the things that we want to do is we're going to do this make build, make start process, start building everything from scratch. Now this container uses an Ubuntu 18.04 kind of like base operating system to do everything. Initially, when we started doing the AutoDyne proofs, we were doing this on like Ubuntu 14, and this is the longest part. And the reason it kind of takes a little bit to build is because we're installing the dependencies for Python 2, right, 2.7, and Python 3 dependencies. So we're actually kind of double installing things, and it's simply because we want to make sure that we put as many things in here again to kind of like function like that War Machine thing. And this is one of the reasons why we're going to put this on Docker Hub, right? So that way you don't have to build this, right? It's not necessary. The way that this application is executed is a lot different than the way that you would go out and install and try to put all these things together. If you do build this yourself and you don't use the that Docker Hub container that we're going to push out there, there are some things that you might not want, right? So you might comment out, you might try experimenting and doing that, and absolutely, that's okay. That's what open source is all about. I know this is going to take a while, and the other things that we kind of like had to overcome in order to do this was as we started doing kind of like that trying to figure out from a system engineering kind of like thing, well, how can I like install this? We ran into all the issues possible, from everything from time zones to obviously not getting prompted for yes or no questions. Easy things, right? But if you've never done this before, these are complete blockers for a lot of people, right? So these are some of the simple things that we just tried putting together to just kind of help people get along and get started using AutoDyne and emulating firmware. If I am correct, we have 2 firmware samples that we will be looking at today. I know one of them is I think it's a neck ear, and the other one I don't remember offhand what it is. I want to say maybe it's a Lexi, Liddy, maybe. Python 2.7 is dead. You're going to see a lot of red. There was this one. There's this one package that at the time it only existed for like Ubuntu 16. So as we're trying to CI/CD this into like 18, we realized, oh, we're going to run into these things that are completely deprecated and removed from the official repos. So I think this version has a couple of dirty hacks that people might frown upon, but look, sometimes that's what it takes. In this case, all right. So what could go wrong? Ay. We are up, set, and ready to go. So if we do a Docker PS here, in our case, when we had this Docker Compose file, I'd mentioned that we had 2 firmware samples. So these 2 firmware samples are kind of placed into this Docker Compose file because this is a more kind of like advanced version of AutoDyne. And what we see here is we have 2 containers up. So I took a long pause because I needed to rest as I was recording this. And we have these 2 containers running, and let's just exec into these things. So yep, that's the first one. So this is the Docker container that's running Firmadyne. So we go here, we're going to ls tmux. So one of the things we did as we're running AutoDyne, and as AutoDyne is invoking all of those Firmadyne commands, we've put the actual run part of Firmadyne into its own like tmux session. So that way you can connect in and out of kind of like this like emulated environment without having to having to like completely either like tear down or break out. So let's just attach into this thing. So tmux a, this is image ID 2. Like most emulated things, it won't work like 100% for the most part, unless you've completely like mapped like architecture and some of those NVRAM locations like flash storage that some of these like firmware devices use. It won't work. So in my case, I came up here a little bit earlier. I think this is the Netgear one. So since we're in tmux, we can just scroll up. We can see the invocation of that run part for Firmadyne. And we go down here a little bit. What do we got here? We're going to see a lot of kernel panics in most cases. But the cool part is, it did work, right? So when you bang into this thing, you may get dropped into a console. So in this case, you get, so for this is the Netgear sample, you get stuck in a user jail. So when you start running, I have the previous command here, like for like IP addresses. It's time to go to work. Let's see here, right? You see how it just kind of stops. It just gives you the loop back, and then the thing kind of just crashes. So you're in the soft user jail, and you can kind of tell when you go in here, right? Where's my present working directory? CLI menu, all right? What's in here? So you can kind of ls things, but let's say I wanted to like go into like /config, right? So easy breakout for user jails. You can't make this stuff up. So now when I run the same command, it's still seg faults, but it does give me a little bit more information, doesn't it? Nope. It sure as hell doesn't. Very good. Let's see, previously, when I came out here, I might just be invoking the wrong command here. Yep, that'll do it. So notice that it's kind of been assigned this this bridge IP address. So if I were to, Control B detach, and in this case I wanted to like nmap. So I've detached from tmux, but I'm still inside the running Docker container. 192.168.0.100. And the SSH port, the web port, and the HTTPS web port for the web UI for that firmware. Very cool, right? So let's go back in here to our sample. You can explore the file system if it extracts. Big if. So in this case, not much action here in root. So let's see what else we got here. to maybe var Etsy. I always look at Etsy. Stuff in Etsy is always cool. Let's see, past WD. Yeah, it's there. Right? It's cool. It worked. It's always a good feeling. Let's exit out of this Docker container. What was the other one? Let's see, Docker PS here. And let's just exec into this one. So I think this is the Letty one. So Docker. Yep. Attach into this thing. Bam. See? Yeah, 2 for 2. Awesome. It's always a good feeling when things work. And considering in this case it's this one Docker Compose file that we're specifying, hey, we want to run these 2 firmware samples, right? And in these case, these are nice firmware samples that extract. They don't have to go through any special decryption just to be able to extract the firmware, and it's friendly enough where it can be emulated without going in there and doing specialized configurations for each sample or for each family of firmware samples. So if we were to go in here to the web directory here, yeah, we see a CGI bin. Yep, good old Lucy. File systems extracted. Go in here to Etsy. There's a password backup file. It looks the same size as the other one. Right, so cool. Always a good feeling when all these things work. Now, for the purposes of brevity, you have to do some interesting tunneling just to be able to then tunnel from your host to the Docker container that's emulating the thing to be able to reach that web port, that SSH port. Firmadyne by default binds to I believe it's a web server, an SSH server, and an output of GDB of the entire container emulation through QEMU. All of these things are things that you have to kind of familiarize yourself within the project, because we could be here for a while just trying to get the tunnels up to be able to show a web interface right now. So bear that and keep that in mind. Let's see what else we got here. Let's exit out of this thing, right? I want to talk to it. So Control B, I'm going to detach, and I'm just going to get out of this of that Docker container that was running it. So since this is the advanced version, one of the things that we had to do was kind of figure out, well, if these things are going to be emulating, and they have their own network addressing kind of requirements, so we didn't just want to keep hitting on all these things are probably going to be hard-coded IPs, because they're not. So we had to start making kind of these virtual NIC cards within Docker to accommodate for the emulation of these things. Since we're accommodating for that emulation, one of the cool things, I guess, is being able to address how IP addressing is going to be managed and kind of handled by Docker. And then the other thing is the use of the internal loop devices that's being used to extract and mount the file systems by QEMU as it's being emulated. So these are things that we're already trying to establish and get a good foothold here as we're doing this Docker Compose file. Most likely, the way that this will look as we release it, it might be a little bit user friendly. It might not. The important thing is it's kind of like that functionality that we're bringing into this. So as I'm looking at the screen here, all these things, they push out their findings into this Postgres database. So all the things that you would normally see in a Firmadyne database are now handled in this other container. And we will have this sample output folder with information about each of the firmware samples, right? So that way, as you've executed these firmware samples, you don't want those interesting artifacts that you've extracted or collected to just kind of stay there. So you want to bring them out into that host operating system, so that way you can do other things with them for more specified and directed analysis. There are some hard-coded creds currently in Firmadyne, so those are there. You can change these to whatever you want, with the exception of maybe one part. Maybe that PR has been done, but we shall see. And that's really it. So all you're doing is, if you want to ever do this just manually and you don't want to use the Docker container, you can just yank that command out for AutoDyne.sh. So there's a version number here. You would have to just give it the name of what you consider the manufacturer to be, and where the firmware sample is. It's pretty easy. So I like it. If it sucked, I wouldn't use it, and this is a lot better than trying to just chain all these things together and piecemeal the execution of firmware. So I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. We worked really hard on this. These things are very, very difficult to record. I had some numerous AV issues during this, so if you see some weird cuts and stuff like that, it wasn't intentional. So I did my best, and hopefully people will start using AutoDyne, which is what we want people to start doing, because it's a lot better and a lot easier to maybe use a version like this if you're a little bit more familiar with Docker. I know that the Docker Compose config might be a little bit intimidating for some, so we may do another branch that's just simply either the script by itself or a simpler container, right? So by the time that this gets released, we have a couple of different internal branches, and we're still trying to figure out what's going to be the best one to push out for people to actually start using this. So again, my name is Jose Fernandez. I am the president and owner of CompSec Direct, and this presentation has been about AutoDyne. So if you're watching this, thank you so much, and thank you for collaborating and participating in events like these, because if we don't have enough events like these, then it's very difficult to push out and bring market awareness to a lot of the software improvements, and I guess what's the word I'm looking for here? Not improvements. I'm just kind of tired. All right, I'm just gonna check out. Thanks again. Take care.